Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. This is for anyone who is looking to improve their life professionally, personally, move things forward. If you're just feeling like you're circling the airport, but nothing's really happening. You're just getting life done. You're surviving, but you're not really thriving. Maybe it's time for a coach, and especially if you're a CEO, C-level executive, maybe somebody who owns their own company, responsible for a team. There's many things that you can do to really, really move the needle in your life, and coaching can get that done. I've got a gentleman now who's got a proven track record of helping many different individuals. He is success-oriented, goal-oriented, decades of experience in helping people on an executive leadership level and just leadership coaching in general. His name is Reggie Bullock, and he's back on the program. Reggie, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. We're both in the same state, not too far from New York City, experiencing the New York winter, if you will.
Yeah, it's cold in New York right now.
It really is. It really is. But you know what? Then down in Florida, everything is relative. I got friends in Ocala. They're like, I can't believe it.
Right.
It was cold. Had a cold snap popping through there the other day. So when it comes to leadership coaching, before we get into the process and what the expectations are and might be, leadership coaching, it's not for everyone. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, leadership coaching is not for everyone. First of all, everybody's not a leader. And secondly, not everybody wants to be a leader. And so no matter who you are, when you're being coached, you're going to have to do the work. When I coach my clients, there's a lot of accountability elements associated with that. There's homework associated with it. There's work, right? They're going to have to put in the work. And so if you're not in it to win it, if you're not about being that leader, then it definitely isn't for you, because you're not going to put the work in, and therefore you're not going to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish.
What is the difference between a manager and a leader?
Yeah. So, they say leaders lead people and managers manage things, but managers do also manage people, right? So with the leader, you're more focused on the actual human being that you are leading, or it could be 1,000, it could be many more. Whereas a manager, you're focused on the task, you're focused on the job, you're focused on the mission, not necessarily the people. Of course, you want the people to get the job done, but at the end of the day, your primary focus is getting the job done. And so that's what you're managing, getting the job done. You're managing a project, you're managing a task, you're managing a portfolio. But a leader is leading people, leading teams, leading an organization, and all of that comes right back to people. And so that's the difference.
Are you teaching, and we're going to get into the coaching process in just a moment, but are you teaching individuals to really get a good read on others, call it empathy, whatever it might be, on a leadership level? Because that's what it sounds like where we're going here, where you need to really be plugged into the people that you're working with.
The short answer to that is yes, but I'm not necessarily teaching them. In coaching, you do more helping the person navigate their own headspace. So yes, it's sort of teaching, it's sort of mentoring, but they're doing the work. And so to be able to understand another person, profile another person, to have the level of emotional intelligence, to understand and have the self-awareness of yourself, to understand the impact. And then some of my executive leaders, I teach them how to, I hate to say it this way, but how do you control someone else's behavior, right? And so in order to do that, right, or in some circles, you call it working the room, right? How do you work the room? When you walk into a room, what is your presence? What is your leadership presence that shows up? And are you conscious of it? And if you are conscious of your leadership presence, are you conscious enough to use it for the good, to use it in favorable of the objective, to use it in favor of helping somebody else grow? So that's the long version of that, yes. But yes, I do teach that. I do. It's almost psychological manipulation when you're good. That's why I'm hesitant, because it can be a power or a level of control that, if not used properly, and you take advantage of another person, then that's not good, right? So there's certain ethics once you have those kind of capabilities that go with that. But I do teach that. Yes.
It's almost like you're learning superpowers.
Yeah, it can be that way.
Interesting. All right. It sounds like a lot of this is self-discovery. Before we can work with others, we really have to have a good sense of self. Would you say that's true? And if so, what is the percentage of it? Let's say coaching is the 100% that you do. How
Right.
much of that is the self-discovery that you teach?
It ebbs and flows because, some of it depends on the client, depending on the workshop. It can be predominantly just teaching that self-discovery, but then teaching how to use it. What do you do with that once you
Hmm.
have discovered it? And there's also that migration of achieving a certain hierarchy. You're familiar with Maslow's theory of hierarchy, needs, wants, safety, self-actualization is at the top. Well, you don't self-actualize right away. You have to put in the work. And so when I'm teaching a person about themselves or allowing them to do their self-assessment and understanding themselves and their emotional intelligence level starts to go higher, then they start to see things that they never saw before. Often when I'm face to face with a client, I'll pull out one of my books called Magic Eye Picture. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Magic Eye Pictures, but a Magic Eye Picture is a 3D picture where, in 2D it's just flat in front of your face, but as you pull it out, you can see inside the picture to the point that you're in the picture. And I use that analogy that not everybody can see another person. Not everybody can see another person and their character, their traits, who they are, their energy, what's behind them. Why is why the way it is? And it starts with seeing yourself. Because if you can't see yourself and you don't understand yourself and you're not aware of the idiosyncrasies and the things that you do, and I always say every last one of us have disorders, right? So you just don't know which ones they are always. But if you can't see yourself, then it's harder for you to see others because in order to lead others, you have to see them. And that's the challenge.
You led me right where my next question was going. And it sounds like, in a positive way, you offer a dose of reality for the people you work with, almost like the mirror goes up in front of them and you're holding the mirror by different principles and tactics. So we can see really who we are and maybe who we're not. And then it sounds like you need to get that. An individual needs to have that mastered before they can really, truly, effectively lead others.
I agree. I know a lot of people think that they're leaders, and some of them have not been coached, not been trained, and they just jumped out there. And because they're in charge or in a leadership position,
Right.
they assume that they're leading. But in many cases, they could be causing harm. And so for me, when you said that dose of reality, as a coach, the more sessions I have with my clients, the stronger the relationship, the stronger the bond. And when that bond, that relationship, what we call partnering with our clients, partnering with the coachee, is strong, now it's more than a dose of reality. I can say what I have to say. Some of my clients, I'm very frank with, and I can say whatever I have to say because we have that relationship. And there's a level of trust that's built into it that I'm not going to hurt them intentionally, or I'm not going to tell them something wrong. And quite frankly, the entire session is about them and their personal growth and development. So, yes, I can say some things that can penetrate them. And the dose of reality often causes them to pause. In a coaching session, there have been times when I've said something and then there's a 2-minute silence. The client just is sitting in that space of reality with an epiphany of
Mm.
something that they may have just discovered for the first time, but it's been with them all their life. And now they're seeing it and discovering it. And, it's a good moment and a sad moment, depending on what it is that we're talking about. But once that happens, now they may be able to see that same thing in other people.
Interesting. Like an aha moment.
Yeah, it is a aha. It is a aha.
Wow. What do you learn these days, Reggie, from talking with the people you work with? Do many not really have a true sense of who they are? Are you detecting that? What seems to be the main thing that comes up when you coach?
Well, I think a lot of people do have a sense of who they are, but we're talking about leadership coaching. We're talking about executive coaching. So that's different. So although you have a sense of who you are you at the 30% level, the 50% level, the 60% level? Most people fall somewhere between the 40 and 60% level of knowing who they are. And then once you start to walk the coaching journey, you may, get to 75 or 80% or 90%. But then the question is, what do you do with it? So it's one thing to discover who you are and have that level of self-awareness, but how do you take that power? How do you take that capability or that knowledge and now help other people? How do you look at another person and ask them the powerful question that's going to take care of them? We often talk about ourselves a lot, I, me, all right? You go to different places, you hear people talk about themselves every day, all day. So what now what? What does that do? What does that have to do with helping someone else? If I'm going to sit here and brag about all of my accolades, all right, so what now what? What did that do for the client? What did that do for the people that I'm leading, other than cause them to go in their corner and say, there Reggie go again. He's doing that thing he does, right? And so when you are aware, you are also aware of how you're transmitting in that communication process and the purpose behind it. The purpose is not you. The purpose is them.
Mm. Totally understand and agree with you. Even on social, I don't post anything unless I feel somebody else is going to get something from it. It may have something to do with me, very rare, but if it does, there's something I feel that somebody's getting from it. I'm not just going to post a picture of food or whatever, unless there's a real reason that it resonates with somebody. They might learn something. So I see what you're saying. And I almost hate to say the word unless I feel that somebody else can grab something. We all have a story. I feel that we learn from other stories.
Right. And so therefore, to your point, what's the benefit behind what I'm saying to the other person? You talked about posting, and I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on a lot of social medias, and one of the things that people say all of the time is, I'm honored to be at such and such a place, or I'm honored to be standing next to such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what now what? How I don't know if that's the right English, but how does you standing next to this person or you are at this event benefit me? I'm happy for you. I think that's great. And so often they may say that and they miss adding another sentence or two to share. Okay, so what now what? How does that benefit the thousands of people that are reading your posts or the millions of people that are reading your posts? Or is it truly only just about you?
I'm honored to be with Reggie today because I learned that we're all broken in some way and we all have something going on and we can overcome that through coaching. There's my post. Going to put it up.
Those are the extra sentences. And
exactly.
That makes a difference. But you had to be conscious of the listener, conscious of your client, conscious of the coachee's requirement. Because even, in coaching, the higher you go in your capabilities at, PCC, MCC, the less you actually talk. The higher you go as a capable coach, the less you actually talk.
There's something to think about right there.
Yeah, it's the 2-to-1 theory.
Well, and it's also, I'm a believer in the power of the pause. You don't have to just jump in there and say something. You're in a conversation. Wait a minute. You're doing the other person a favor by talking slower and pausing, because now they're able to comprehend what you're saying, process it, and all of that. Plus, it also shows you're listening. Content. Let's talk about that. What kind of content do we expect when you're coaching somebody on the leadership level?
When you say content, so on my website, I have a list of almost 100 different goals that a lot of clients have presented to me of what they would like to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So content-wise, in coaching, it's a loose word because the client is the one that's truly leading the dance. I don't know if you ever did the tango before, but in a tango, one person leads, one person follows. I think in salsa, similar. And so the dance between me, the coach, and my clients, the coachee, is I'm not leading. I'm following with boundaries, but they're leading. So whatever comes up, it doesn't matter what I think or what I wanted to talk about or even my opinion about their leadership. That's consulting. And there's a difference between mentoring, coaching, consulting. And so as a coach, whatever they come up with is the direction I go into. And so if that's the content, yes, but often it may be a feeling, it may be a challenge, it may be just something they're pissed off about, or they may have read something. Reggie, I want work-life balance. Reggie, I want to be a better public speaker. I'm an introvert. I want to get on stage and speak in front of 10,000 people. Or, I just had this feedback from my leadership, and there's some things I need to work on. Or we just had an election, and our organization is shifting, and I need to learn how to shift with it. So often it's based on what the client needs and what they bring up. And as a coach, I help facilitate them in that level of in that space of awareness to go in the direction that's going to be positive for them. So when you say content, content almost sounds like a product or service, right? And, or something that I have predetermined. And in coaching, I don't necessarily predetermine the outcome of a session.
Which is great to hear because it's not cookie cutter. It's tailored to each individual. And as you said, you're taking the lead from them. It sounds like you're not telling them what to do. They're telling you what they need to do. It sounds like showing them how to do the dance to get there.
Yeah. And it's work, right? I mean,
everything is work, Reggie.
It takes a lot out of me because you don't know from 1 minute to the next in the session where you might be going. As an experienced coach, I have an understanding of where we could go. and even as a personal note, I may even have my own personal thought of where we should go. But that's not the way coaching works.
Now, we've talked before about accountability and how very important it is, especially in leadership coaching, to get the job done. How does your accountability work? Are in a typical coaching program, how accessible are you? Tell us about that.
So there's two elements to the accountability. You're asking me how am I being accountable to my client and how am I holding the client accountable to what they are working on? So those are the two pieces. My accountability is yes, depending on the package that you purchase, right? Because this is a business, I am accessible to most of my clients by email, and I'll get back to them, or by text or phone. And some of the executive clients who have a combination of coaching, mentoring, and consulting, they have 24-hour access to me, right? They're senior leaders in charge of things, and sometimes they need what they need right now. Reggie, I know it's 12:30, a.m. It's after midnight, but I'm getting ready to get on the plane to Japan, and I need to talk about this, right? So I'm gonna make myself available because I understand how the human psychic work, right? If I'm not available, then they're on hold, and if they're on hold and they're leaders, how many other people are on a hold with them? So, wow. So the accountability piece, and then I do my research, I do my studying. Sometimes, depending on what a client and I talked about, I may go do some research on that specific thing for that person. So the next time we talk, I'll have it available for them. And so they'll pay for that service. And that's, like I said, consulting and coaching. And then the other thing is I'm responsible from an ethics perspective, from an International Coaching Federation perspective, which I'm certified for a lot of things, right? We agree and we sign, these ethics. And so from an accountability, I hold myself accountable to be the best possible coach that I can. Now, that's saying it, but literally, I will say certain things for them to know if I do something wrong or I say something wrong, hold me accountable, check me, say something. Now, the other piece is holding them accountable. Whatever it is we talk about in the session that they agree to do, I expect them to do it. And sometimes I expect them to do it right away, right? It's like, no, you're not going to do this in 2 or 3 weeks. You're going to do this in 2 or 3 days. Because come next week, the next session, I want to know everything that you've done. And so no excuses. And I'm one of those coaches that I don't tolerate excuses. I just don't. So I will coach you in the direction of 0 excuses. You can give me a reason something occurred, but excuses, oh, you made a conscious decision not to do something. We don't tolerate that. That's
Would you
because it's about leadership, right? It's about leadership.
would you say excuses are holding somebody back from their goals in the first place?
Oh, yeah. I often say excuses are tools of the incompetent, built upon monuments of
Ow.
nothingness. Those
Ow.
who specialize in their uses are seldom good for anything but excuses. So don't have no excuses. If you're going to be a leader, be one.
Give me that. I'm going to write that down and share that. Excuses,
Are tools of
tools.
the incompetent, built upon monuments of nothing. You'll get it in the playback of the video.
I want it now because I'm in a group and I'm going to send that out. I'm not even kidding. Uh,
But in leadership, right, it's about holding yourself accountable to high standards and disciplining yourself to, to do those things because you're setting an example for everybody
sure.
else to follow. So do you want everybody in your organization, your team, your company, your business, your division to all just run around giving you excuses why they didn't do their job? Well, if that's the way you operate, then you should allow everybody else to operate that way too. But in leadership, that's just intolerable. Yeah.
I'm on the page of your website you mentioned before of goals, dozens and dozens and dozens, and I am going to randomly just grab a few here, but
All
I
right.
think they resonate with all of us. And I'm not even picking one. I'm just going to look up here. Become a more effective and effective leader. Find more efficient processes. Improve on success. Lead by example. Offer constructive feedback that facilitates growth. These are all so relatable. Be fair in the treatment of others, accept responsibilities. Again, there's so many here, but attend more social and events to develop relationships. If you look at the post-it note I have right over here, that is one of my goals, and actually lists some of the organizations that I want to join or rejoin since COVID that I kind of just let the networking thing kind of pass by. So I relate to all of these.
And keep in mind, those goals that you've just read, I didn't come up with any of them. Those are goals that all of my clients, collectively have said at one time or another is their goal. And I wrote them down. So at some point, I just consolidated them and turned them into a list because they're actual clients that stated those goals.
Wow. And some of them are, being more of an active listener. Some may say, well, a no-brainer of duh, okay. But unless you're intentional in these goals like that one, you're probably not going to get it done.
No, I teach many courses, and one of the things I say in my courses, how many classes or courses have you had since kindergarten in active listening? Most people, the answer is zero. So in first grade, second grade, third grade, you never had a course on listening. Middle school, high school, you didn't have a course on listening. But ever since you were 2 years old, someone said, "Are you listening to me? You better listen to me. Didn't you hear me? You should. Are you not listening?" So you hear people say the word all your life, asking you to listen, tell you to listen, imposing on you to listen, and you've never had a single class in listening. I think the school system's failing in that respect. If you're going to expect everybody to listen, at least teach them how, right? And so when I say active listening, I'm teaching my clients for the first time in their life how to actively listen.
Wow. Final question.
Sure.
Positivity. So important. We deal with adversity, situations come up personally, health, everything's going on in our lives. How do you suggest we stay positive?
So I love this, and there and many coaches who might be listening, they know what PQ is, positive quotient, positive intelligence, right? You have IQ, EQ, and PQ, and so in the PQ we talk about sage and saboteur. So your brain operates either in the sage space or the saboteur space. They can't operate in both at the same time, and often it's a choice. And this is where you get to, I coach people how to work on their power of choice to operate in their sage space. When you understand what your sage energy is all about, and when you understand how to interact your sage with other people's sages or saboteurs, and you're naming it as sage and saboteur, now you are deliberately working on being more positive with capabilities and actionable types tools and whatnot, because you're focused on your sage. You understand your sage. And the sage has several different types of names that are all positive. And when you have that tool and you work in that space, then at that point, yeah, you can be more positive because you know how.
You just said And the reason I asked that question was you said before that, as a 2-year-old, you're told, listen, but nobody teaches you how to listen.
It's true.
I believe nobody teaches us how to be positive. When you're 2 years old, you walk up to the dining room table. There's a salt shaker. There's a pepper shaker. Let me just grab that. And then what are you told? You're told, right, put that down. No, you're taught negativity from the beginning, and you internalize that. We don't teach positivity or how to get back on track. Life is going to be like that. We all get that. But to continue, fantastic talking with you, Reggie. Always is. You're concise, to the point, insightful, relatable, usable. This is just a piece of what you offer within your coaching program. How do we find you?
Well, if you're looking at the video, it's in the background, but I'm at www.reggieb.com. Easy to find me. I've talked to my agents. I said, her name is Willeen Dunn. She's my agent for keynote speaking. I said, you might get some extra calls now. So, but if anyone knows her, you can go to her site, but Willeen Dunn, but really www.reggieb.com, and I'm accessible.
Learned a lot, validated a lot for me, and I'm sure many others today on the whole executive coaching process. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Steve. And you have, I'll just say, stay warm out there.
That's why I'm wearing this hoodie.
I can tell.
It's cold. And you too, and have a safe travel back to Maryland, correct?
Yes, Maryland. Thank you.
Beautiful. All right, we'll catch up soon. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the mytuner-radio, onlineradiobox, and simpleradio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.